In this video, we're going to do part one of trying to install menu navigation into our prior My Pet Store application that we worked on in prior videos. And in this case, this is your assignment that I'm going to be demoing here. We're going to incorporate the same type of menu navigation within the Pet Store application. And as I get started here, you can see that it's on the home page. I have these three little bars here. If I click on the bars, it's going to have some animation and some transitions that it's doing to bring up our menu. I have a little header area, and if we start dissecting this, you will be needing to create multiple separate files, and we are handling the header area for the side menu as one file. We have each individual option that's being handled as a separate option, and we call that our side menu row view. So each one of these is one of those, and then we have the whole entire menu option here that we're calling our side menu view that we're using here. Now when we get into working with this, each of our options that we're showing is going to be defined within an enumeration in a separate file, and that is what we're going to be focusing on for our particular video, is starting with our enumerations and getting that set up before we move on to trying to implement some of the other pieces of our menu, and then go ahead and take our menu and incorporate all of our different views within that. So in this case, if I click on the portfolio, it's going to have a little transition and show the portfolio page. If I do the contact, it's going to do the contacts page. And then also the about. One of the other things I need to be concerned about as I'm going through and designing these is, what does it look like not only in dark mode, but what does it look like in light mode as well? So if I go ahead and do the Command Shift A, this is going to change it over to light mode. Then I could take a look to see what my menu and transitions, etc., is going to look like, because we want to make sure that if we're picking out certain colors, that when we get into light and dark mode, we can still see the text. Otherwise, it's going to be pretty unreadable at that point. So that's one thing we need to be cognizant of. Now we're going to start with our Pet Store application. I'm going to bring it over here. And this is essentially where I left off. We have our profile view. That was our main view that we were using in this case. We will refactor and add a different view that gets used. We can just kind of take a look at it to make sure that we have an understanding of where we left off. I'm going to go ahead and expand this just a little bit. And we pretty much have all of our colors that we were using, and it looks pretty much where we left off. And I'm going to get rid of this here to give more space here. Now, the first thing that we want to do is we want to focus on our enumeration for our menu that we're going to use for the Pet Store. And the Pet Store's application is not going to be something where it's a commerce based. It's going to be something more where it is used by employees. So it's going to be more of a portal type application that might have some graphics, and it might have some searching on inventory, etc., etc. So some of the things that potentially an employee would use as opposed to a customer. What I want to do is create a new file, and I can go ahead and use the new file from template. And when I choose this, I'm not creating a view, so I wouldn't be picking the Swift UI view. I want to create an enumeration. That's going to be just a Swift file, and I can go ahead and hit next, and I'm going to place it in the same project, and I'm going to call this side menu options. Go ahead and create that, and I'm going to immediately change this to Swift UI. And we can go ahead and start talking about what our options would be. So we need to create an enumeration that's going to have multiple cases, And we want our enumeration to be not only an integer, but we want it to be case iterable. And what do I mean by that? I want to be able to use a for statement to iterate over each of the cases. So I have to specify that when I define my enumeration. And I'm going to start with my enum. So this is going to define my enumeration, and I'm going to call this side menu options. This is going to be an int, and it's going to be case iterable. Now within my side menu option, I want to provide several different cases. These would be the actual menu options that are going to be provided. And in this case, I have a home, I have sales, I have profile, and I have a search. Those would be the cases that I want to set up for my little mini application here. And this is going to actually then, after we get done with the menus, we're going to use this to go through and do some prototyping as well. So this is going to be case home, case sales, case profile, and case search. And that's going to set up everything there, but I'm still not done, because with each of my options on that menu, if we would go back to that menu, it had not only a little icon picture, it had titled text. So I want to provide a couple of properties that are essentially computed properties that I'm going to then have and available that I can use. And so when I'm doing a home, I'm going to not only get the title for a home, but I'm going to get some type of system image name that's also going to be a computed property that's going to give me the right system image to use. Now recall, when we get started here, that we can install our SF symbols, and this is going to give me all of the different images that I can try to pick from for those system images. I can always right click if I find something and copy the name and then utilize it within this as we go through. So if you're going to create some type of a menu like this in your final project, you could then locate whatever it is as far as the symbol and then copy the symbol name into Xcode here. Now I'm going to go ahead and close that because I don't really need anything here. I have all of my symbols already picked out that I'm going to be using, but that's your reference where you would search through, find the symbol names, and then copy them in. So my first property is going to be the title. So this is going to be a computer property. So this is, if I can spell title here, this is going to be a string type, and I'm going to use a switch statement, and it's going to be executing on self, so essentially based off of the case here. And when that case is going to be home, because remember when we're using our cases we have to use the dot syntax, we want to go ahead and return the text home. If our case is dot sales, we want to return the title sales. If our case is search, we want to return search. And finally, if our case is profile, then we want to return our profile. Now, one of the things to understand here is when I want to place my menu items in a certain order to show up, I need to put the case statements essentially in the order that I want them to appear. It doesn't necessarily matter as far as order within your switch statement. It's just a matter of when we are going to be iterating over our case statements, we want them to be in order for when they print out, and that's more important than down here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tab in just a little bit so that it's a little bit more apparent that the switch statement has those case arguments. Now the last thing that we want to do in this particular enumeration is create that system image name computed property as well. It's going to be very similar to what we did with the title, but instead of having an actual title that we're returning, we're going to be returning the name of our system image. I'm going to start with var system image name, and this is going to be a string that's returned. And what I want to do here is put in a switch statement on the self, similar to what we did before. So it's iterating and looking at whichever the case statement is that's selected. Then it's going to, for the case of home, return the file menu .and.cursor arrow. Now I could pick some home image or something, but I'm just going to have it do this particular image. We'll take a look at it. If we don't like it, we can always change it. If it's sales, we're going to return chart.bar. If it is search, we are going to return magnifying glass, and hopefully I'm spelling these right, otherwise we're going to have images that don't show up. And then our final case is .profile, and this is going to return person. I'm going to go ahead and again tab in my case statements so it's a little bit easier to read. Now that pretty much takes care of our enumeration, but one of the problems that we have is when we try to iterate, we don't have anything that is identifiable, and we need to be able to have some type of identifiable attribute in order to iterate over something using our for each as well. Not only does it need to be case iterable, it needs to have something that is identifiable. And unfortunately, with the way that we can define our enumerations, we can't really specify that. So we have to create some type of an extension to our enumeration where we can define that identifiable. We're going to go ahead and create an extension here. And this is going to be to our side menu options. We basically want to make this identifiable. And once we do that, we're going to add an ID property. This is going to be of type int. And we're essentially going to return the self.raw value. So the raw value of the case statement. So anytime that we have a case statement that's defined as integer, it's going to have a default value of 0, 1, 2, 3. It's going to start with 0. We can have it specified with a start, but in our case, it doesn't really matter. So we're going to have it start with 0. So when we come down here and extend this as identifiable, we're basically going to return the raw value, which for home is going to be 0, for sales is going to be 1, for profile is going to be 2, and for search is going to be 3. And I think this is probably a really good place to stop for our first video. We're going to get into how we can incorporate our side menu options into some of the other views that we're going to have to create for our menu in the next video.